What's up, everybody? I'm James. Welcome to Mechanical Mayhem, and welcome to the beginning of the MechWarrior 5 Clans Flash Storm DLC story-driven campaign playthrough. Quite a mouthful. This is the playthrough of the Ghost Bear campaign for Flash Storm, the DLC campaign expansion experience for MechWarrior 5 Clans, just like the MechWarrior 5 Clans base campaign playthrough that I have on the channel. This is story driven, so we're going to be watching all the cutscenes, paying attention to the banter, commentating and stuff like that, going further into some of the lore and insights into what's going down or what's mentioned or what Easter eggs might be there, and just generally enjoying and appreciating such a fun and cool game. With that said, this is the first mission of Flash Storm, which you get thrown into after some cutscenes, and there's a lot of cool cutscenes. I will be staying quiet during them, so basically this first 7 minutes ish after this little intro here will just be cutscene, and then I'll join back with you later. So strap in and prepare for drop.
Fellow Khans, it has been a week since this body appointed me to serve as your new Khan. In that time, I have reviewed Liu Shao's successes and failures before his untimely death, and have formulated a plan on how we may better ourselves for the fight ahead. Considering the setbacks encountered on Twycross and Womcott, I have decided it is time to activate Revival's reserve clans to provide relief and reinforcements. Clan Steel Viper will be assigned to the Jade Falcon Corridor. Clan Nova Cat to the Smoke Jaguar Corridor.
Pause.
He is more clever than we thought.
The other Crusader Khans were fools to think that appointing Kerensky to the Ilkhanship would muzzle the wolves.
Setting rival clans against one another was a clever play.
At least our clan was spared a similar fate.
Only because of our dismal performance in the early waves of the invasion. I should have pushed to deal with Khan Burgeon faster. If we had ended his incompetent rule sooner, we might have won the Razzlehag bid or avoided what happened on Last Frontier.
We are now the Khans of the Ghost Bears, Aletha. Our warriors look to us to turn the page and focus on righting this ship. No use dwelling on the past.
Spoken like someone who already has a plan. What are you thinking, Khan Jorgensen?
Khan Burgeon grossly underestimated our logistical needs to invade the Inner Sphere. And now the Ghost Bear trails behind all the other invading clans. I do not plan on making that same mistake. Play.
This invasion has tested all of our clan's logistics chains. Some, in the merchant caste, have used Liu Shao's previous policies as cover to price gouge clans participating in the invasion. Additionally, after careful thought, I will rescind Liu Shao's moratorium on intra-clan bachals and trials.
Pause. This. Kerensky may have done this to guarantee that the wolves will move ahead in the race towards Terra, but this may also be our chance at making up for lost time. replenish our tomb and through our homeworld reserves. But the Ilkhan reinstating our ability to challenge other clans. This is an opportunity, not just to gain additional material, but also new OmniMech designs developed by the other clans.
We only have a month before our invasion resumes. What can we do in that time?
Sakan Kabrinsky, what would you say to your Silver Root Keshik going on the hunt?
There is no time to waste. The Jade Falcons and the Smoke Jaguars have newly developed OmniMech designs, and we intend to take them. The second Falcon Jaegers will be the first to feel our wrath.
Jaegers have only fought militia and civilian police. Time to give them a real fight.
Always good to knock those self-righteous falcons down a peg.
They will likely try to pick us apart, bit by bit.
Which is why we will not let them. Sakan Kabrinsky wants us to run the Silver Root straight down their throats before they know what hit them. Now, get to your mechs. Prepare for combat.
For the Silver Root!
For the Silver Root!
For the Silver Root!
Dismissed. And you. Most warriors serve entire careers dreaming of the chance to one day join us, the Sakan's honor guard. Sakan Kabrinsky may have personally ransomed you straight out of Sipco training, but here, your inexperience makes you a liability. To yourself and to my star.
I only wish to serve the Sakan with honor.
Then be prepared to keep up. I have zero tolerance for dead weight.
Af. Star Captain.
Star Captain, approach vector to drop zone and the Erie is clear. Prepare to deploy.
Alrighty. We are strapped in, getting dropped in the Erie on Huntress, which is Jade Falcon territory. They did not win it or conquer it. It was gifted to them by Smoke Jaguars, one of those rare instances where clans gift something to another clan. In any case, we're getting ready for drop, and those cutscenes in the beginning were pretty cool, but there's a lot to unpack there. So once we get situated and locked in with the mission and that kind of squared away, I'll try to unpack the opening cutscenes plus more about the mission. We are the Silver Root Keshik here in this Ghost Bear campaign, and that means we're the elite. And of course, as the elite, we gotta have a fire moth, right? Like, why not have a fire moth? So I like the fire moth, I do, but it's such a tissue paper type of mech, so you really gotta be careful. Now, Jonathan, the new guy, is in a huntsman, so we have two new mechs in the star. And what I like about this is outside of, I believe, the Nova, I think the Kit Fox, I'm not 100% sure, I can't remember because I don't remember his loadout, and the Mad Dog, everything else is a variant or a different Omnipod set. The Prime is the Mad Dog and the Nova and possibly the Kit Fox. So I like that we actually have non-Prime, variants of an Omni-Mech in a mission like this, right off the bat. So, we are basically on a route, and we got to destroy every Falcon we come across. The idea is to basically win, right? So that's the goal here. What I like about this is that it doesn't really get tutorial-y at all. It's expecting you to have played the Smoke Jaguar campaign because, well, you need the base game to be able to run the expansion. I also like how Rook explains the elementals. It's a very quick description of how they fight, and also reminds you you can order them, right? I do like that. So it does it very well in character, if you will, too, because it's not like press E or press F6 or whatever. It basically says use your command interface and you can order them around. So a nice reminder and a nice in-universe thing that would make sense. So we saw in the beginning there, technically I guess the beginning of this mission, that last cutscene with Jonathan and the Silver Root. He is fresh out of Civco training. He was ransomed to the Silver Root by the Sakan herself. This is highly unorthodox. They don't like it. He hasn't proven himself, so he's definitely getting the ringer for sure in terms of cold shoulder and attitude, as you would definitely expect, because a Keshik is an elite force. The Silverroot Keshik has lore, and I won't go too far into it now, as it'll unravel or reveal itself in the missions in time, so I'll discuss it then. And there goes one of our elementals, or one of their elementals and our elementals. But I do like that they do kind of keep to that lore. It's pretty great. Now, we weren't expecting to encounter these guys right away like this. That's why it kind of caught us off guard, because we were expecting to at least know they were coming, and we had no idea. So that's part of the stakes of this mission. We are in a trial to possess copies of a Jade Falcon designed mech. A new mech produced, the Nightgyre is its name. And we basically said, we challenge you for copies of that mech. We're not challenging them to become like one of the providers of it per se, but rather just to have some. I'm sure Ghost Bear could reverse engineer it to a degree to make more for themselves, but they're not looking to become like a supplier. We're just looking to have some to offset what we have already in our supplies. So just keep that in mind, right? Presuming we're successful, which is the whole idea of this campaign, Jade Falcon will still have the Nightgyre and produce it. We'll just have it as well. This is how mech chassis tend to go. A lot of them is that you have to win them or claim them through Isorla or something if you didn't make it. So that's how it goes for the clans. Anyways, we're now figuring out that we're being jammed. Our sensors are being jammed, so we can't tell where the Falcons are at in terms of positions. And we got to take care of these jammers if we're going to get into a good position to continue this trial and defeat them. So that is now what our goal is in our sector. We're going to run through and take out some jammers, which is pretty cool. So Ghost Bear here is looking to prove itself in this next wave of the invasion. We are, as you can tell by the first cutscene, past Leo Shower's death. We're in that year of peace, but we're in the clan homeworld area of space. So we're not in the Inner Sphere at the moment. We don't have any Inner Sphere with us. We only have Bloodname Warriors with us from the Inner Sphere, and then whoever's in the homelands or homeworlds. Which is why we have Jonathan now, because he finished Civco training, which is in clan space. And this is part of, reinforcing themselves as best they can and trying to figure out their logistics, because as we learn, and I'll go into this I think in a separate video, Ghost Bear didn't have a good showing in the beginning of the clan invasion, and now the new Khans are trying to make up for that and basically mend that problem so that Ghost Bear can prove its might. And part of that process is going to be adding to their equipment, hence this brand new mech chassis, more or less. So that is the whole idea of this trial. Now, we saw Ulrich Kerensky, the new Ilkhan, as we knew from the Smoke Jaguar campaign, and of course the actual lore. Remember, this is all based on actual lore of Battletech. This is kind of like an embellished tale because it's a video game, and it's not considered to be truly canon, but that doesn't really matter for the purposes of this discussion or this series. But in any case, my point is we know about this story. It's been told decades ago, and Ulrich Kerensky is one of the cast of characters, and he does become the next Ilkhan, like he is here. And what I like about how that was handled as we found the first jammer, and this is basically our shtick for the rest of the mission, is locating jammers and destroying them and taking out the Jade Falcon guarding them. But in any case, Ulrich Kerensky is a very shrewd tactician. He was, as a point of note, Leo Shower's rival, if you will. They were rivals to one another. So he's really not that upset about his death, to be honest. Granted, to be fair, Kerensky was also wounded. Like, there would have been a very real plausibility he could have been taken out if rescue crews didn't get to the bridge fast enough. But in any case, the whole direwolf situation was definitely a debacle for Clan Wolf, but it's like literally their only debacle. Just happens to be a doozy. So, as we learned, Ulrich Kerensky was voted in as the next Ilkhan and nominated and everything else by the Crusaders, kind of almost in unison as a way to potentially try and rein him in, control him, slow him down, bog him down type of situation, including Ghost Bear. So while Jorgensen in the cutscene says it was foolish to think that this would rein him in, he was also kind of in on it too, but that's neither here nor there. We see how calculating he is in his different orders, right? He activated the reserve clans. We only hear about 2. What I find interesting about MechWarrior 5 clans is that we haven't heard about the Diamond Sharks yet. They are a part of the invasion as well. But we know that Steel Vipers and Nova Cats are activated. We knew about the Nova Cats for sure from Smoke Jaguar's campaign because, well, we had a fight against them. But they also activated Steel Viper, and they put the Steel Vipers with Jade Falcon, and they put the Nova Cats with Smoke Jaguar. The 2 clans that basically hate each other are working with each other now, or have to because of Ulrich Kerensky. A very tactical move, and he's stacking the deck in favor of Clan Wolf because the clans still treat this as like a big competition of sorts and to prove their worth and their mightiness. So, with that said, as we move forward, taking out these J Falcons, and be careful, right? By the way, getting back to the mission at hand, while we clip some feathers, or some wings, I should say, is when I first did this mission, I had to redo it. My star was picked apart by the very end because I was being too aggressive. This is definitely not a pushover mission to start you off, and the big thing is that you aren't customizing your mechs or anything. You don't have that potential. You're running with what they give you. As far as I'm aware, there's no way outside of the SimPod to do this mission with a different configuration. So you're stuck with it. If you don't particularly like using the Mad Dog, no, I like the Mad Dog, but if you don't particularly like using it, or you don't want Firemoth on your star, it's too bad. So you got to be careful with that. Anyway, we'll locate another jammer. So, while we've been predominantly fighting light mechs with some mediums, it's a numbers game, right? And what I also find rather neat, as you kind of saw a few times now, when you see a bunch of medium lasers fire together, aka when a Nova Prime fires off a volley, sometimes the green lasers, are so many of them, it looks like a big yellow laser. It's pretty interesting. It definitely didn't happen pre this DLC, and I kind of like it. It's a pretty cool effect when it does happen. Anyway, Ulrich Kerensky, definitely hampered Smoke Jaguar and Jade Falcon with their rivals in their sectors, and is stacking the deck in favor of Clan Wolf, like I said, and also removed the patrol and kind of a trials moratorium that Leo Showers had in place. We heard about this very briefly in the Smoke Jaguar campaign when Jaden is talking to I forget which star, it was Garnet Star or whatever, but basically the other commander says, "You're lucky that Leo Showers forbid us from issuing challenges, or I fight you over that remark." Kind of our only real hint that that is not something to be done. And Leo Showers did this in the story here and everything because, well, if we don't do that, the clans are going to be at each other's throats as well as trying to take Terra, because they're going to issue trials to each other, and if they feel slighted, they're going to try to fight each other. And it's the clan way, but also when you're trying to retake the inner sphere, you know, return home, as it were, as children of Kerensky, you also want to be able to, you know, actually return home. So I think Leo Showers is very pragmatic in the concept of going, okay, we don't need any trials or patrols amongst ourselves. We're going to be doing plenty of fighting against the inner sphere. And Oleg Kerensky lifted that moratorium, allowing for exactly what we're doing here to claim this, you know, copies of this mech. But it also is a pretty good way to keep the Crusader clans and your rivals kind of preoccupied. Because while yes, that means Clan Wolf is going to be challenged, Ghost Bear isn't necessarily a rival per se. And since Ghost Bear performance was pretty lackluster in the beginning, they kind of get a little bit overlooked in terms of the different politicking from Kerensky. But also, Jade Falcon would probably issue challenges to Wolf all the time with this, but he also gave them Steel Viper, a clan that they also hate. So they're going to, and Steel Viper hates Jade Falcon. So there's going to be a lot of back and forth there, and Wolf basically won't have to worry. So in reinforcing and opening up the trials, he basically has two of the clans fighting with one hand tied behind their back in terms of trying to achieve greater glory and outshine him. So he's done some masterful strokes for sure. And I like how we get a sense of that through that opening cutscene. And I don't know, I said this in a reaction, but I think I don't know if those elementals with him are Wolf Elemental bodyguards, or if that's the Ebon Keshik, which is a special detachment of elementals, but they look cool either way. So that's the oversimplified, quick down and dirty approach of discussing the opening cutscene there. Obviously the one that we see with Silverroot really establishes Jonathan and the rest of the star and that kind of sandpaper grading between the two. I rather like that. And this is a good example of taking something with established lore, but also allowing themselves to explore it by making up characters for it. So this cast of characters in Silverroot's Keshik right here, or the Silverroot Keshik I should say, isn't necessarily quote-unquote lore accurate, meaning Lilith Hall and, you know, Rick Becker and all of them aren't necessarily brought up in any specific writings anywhere. It doesn't mean they couldn't have been the names of people in the Silverroot Keshik. It just means that they're not drawing directly from that. They're making it up. Same thing with Jonathan. And it allows them to play around and have fun with their own story arc of cast of characters and kind of character growth, if you will, which I'm all for. We had that with the Cobalt Star of Smoke Jaguar as well, right? Only Cobalt Star technically doesn't even exist, period, but there's definitely a plausibility you could have a star with the designation Cobalt Star, so it works. I'm fine with that. You know, it worked very well. But here we have the Silverroot Keshik as a real thing with basically made-up characters. They can do what they want. They did reference the actual kind of, you know, member in charge, more or less, that is currently in the med bay or whatever. So I like that little name drop. And one thing about Keshiks aren't necessarily just one star either. They can be as big as a cluster, or at the very least a couple of stars, or a trinary type of deal. So, right, like they can span the gambit in terms of that size. So this could be Silverroot Keshik, and the actual quote-unquote lore-accurate star and names outside of the one that exists, I don't really know of any others, could still also be Silverroot Keshik at this time. It's just two different stars of it, if that makes any sense. So we are approaching a pretty good pace towards the end of this mission. But as you can see, even after repairs, we're taking some damage. And also, I didn't bring it up during the repairing, but that is going to be kind of a defining feature of this DLC campaign. There's going to be a lot more repair bay action for you than you had in the entirety of the Smoke Jaguar campaign. I'm not against it. I'm not complaining. It's just an observation. And quite frankly, I think it lets them be a bit more leaning into concept and pressure on the player and their group because, well, they can throw a lot more at us and we can then repair afterwards if we survive all right. So, like, the number of lights and mediums they're throwing at us, granted, we could have encountered that with Cobalt Star, don't get me wrong, but they're able to consistently do that with turret support and whatever else because, well, oh, they can repair at least once in this mission or whatever. So I feel like a lot of the missions can have a lot more of a threat against us in terms of numbers against us or even tonnage. So it makes for a bit more actiony, in my opinion. Not that Smoke Jaguar's campaign was lacking action, not at all. I just feel like it lets them. I feel like they were trying to help out the players as well as be able to lean a bit more into attacking us with stuff because, well, there's a repair bay nearby. That's what I'm getting at. So here we have an enemy Nova. Be very careful. That enemy Nova can really hurt you, as we see with our Nova of the same configuration in the Prime. Those shots can definitely hurt. And as you'd expect, we're seeing the typical banter and kind of, not really hazing, because we don't like that word, whatever, but kind of proving your worth, getting your lumps, as it were, in terms of fighting in a combat situation while having your own star basically heckle you. We definitely have Jonathan's initiation going on, you could say here, because at the end of the day, the Sakan did order it, and so you have to obey, but they don't have to like it, and they can definitely let him know about it, which they definitely are doing. But all in all, he's making a good show for himself in terms of this mission, right? Taking down some enemies, staying alive. It helps that he's in a 50-ton mech. As we can see, the Kit Fox is hurting, and the Fire Moth is also hurting. And here we have another set of repair bays. So this is what I was getting at when I said that we have a lot of repair bays in this campaign. This is the first mission, and there's a total of 6 repair bays. I don't know if you've noticed, but our elementals sometimes get a little stuck. This is pre that patch, at least this footage. And they also kind of redeploy, and we get a countdown timer for that, which is pretty cool. And they put in some work. They definitely beefed up the elementals, because classically, the classic configuration of an elemental was a machine gun, a small laser, and that SRM2, and then of course there's their battle claw, right? Well, in this, they are medium laser, small laser, SRM2. So they have quite a big step up in punch here. I'm all for it. I approve. Doesn't bother me. But it was definitely surprising. I'm like, why? Because I remember when I was first playing, I was like, where all is this medium laser fire coming from? And then I looked at my elementals more closely. I'm like, oh, they have it. Okay, pretty cool. So once you get your repair on in whatever way you can, we basically now are going to press on. So who do you repair in this mission? Right? Yourself, typically, because the enemy does tend to prioritize you a bit. But also, we have a Fire Moth, a Kit Fox, and then 2 of the mediums. The way I look at it is, if that Nova has the firepower, like if the arms are not hurting too bad, then the Nova can forego a repair, potentially. Same thing for the Huntsman, right? I kind of personally repair the light mechs more so. So here we're at the kind of final fight area. We have a rifleman, so another heavy. Quad UAC 2s, Ultra AC 2s are pretty dangerous, especially with the light mechs we have, as they have good rate of fire on that thing. Ultra autocannon 2s are no joke, even though people sometimes scoff at them. But that's okay, because it has to get to us, and we have some terrain we can make use of, and we can get our elementals on it to harass it. And we shouldn't necessarily be too laser focused, especially if it's not actively firing on our star, because we have things like this Stormcrow to deal with, which is also very potent. But yeah, in terms of repairing, I try to keep the light mechs in the fight as long as possible. I'd rather not have them eject. A, for the pilot experience, and B, it's an extra shot, even if it's an SRM-4 only, or even if it's a medium laser only. It's a little bit extra for you to put damage on the target. So, when it comes to elementals, you can order them specifically on their own. I kind of let them do their own thing. They kind of wander around, and they'll latch onto the enemy mechs and slam them down, and if you're not careful, the enemies will do the same to you. Do you need to prioritize them necessarily when you first see them? If they are out in front and the enemy mechs are not that close, you don't have something like a Nova breathing down your neck or whatever, you can kind of focus or have your star focus fire on them a little bit just to bring them down, because they can do decent damage for sure. Otherwise, I would say treat it as a target of opportunity alongside everything else. Things like a Rifleman 2C or a Nova, I would definitely prioritize a bit more over an enemy elemental, because they're not necessarily going to slam into you every 5 seconds. In this playthrough, I didn't get slammed into, I don't think, at all for this mission. So, you know, it all depends on who they target, how fast they get knocked down, and what else you're facing. This Nova, though, is no joke, so definitely be careful. It definitely hurts. Especially at the end, where everybody's kind of worse for wear, for sure. But I like that about this mission. We're not leaving it unscathed. We definitely get a sense of what Battletech and MechWarrior is about, and that is trading blows, you know, smartly if you can. One thing I have noticed is a lot of cockpit hits. So you're going to want to be careful. I've actually, in a playthrough on stream in the MECHA-nical campaign, I actually restarted a mission because my mech was taken out by cockpit hits. I've never had that happen before, and all of a sudden it just drops. I'm like, well, let's restart that, because that's some bogusness. So I feel like they're able to beam the cockpit a bit more, so be careful with that. If you're noticing some hits, pay attention to your damage and try to torso twist or whatever to keep your cockpit out of harm's way. But with that said, we took out all the mechs in the area. The trial is not over. This is kind of the first part, and then we're going to go into phase 2 to complete this trial against Jade Falcon. But that'll be the next video. In any case, though, we have had, there we go, those are words, a successful mission for the first mission. And that means after that, we're going to be able to do some upgrades and customizations to mechs and check out how we're able to get mechs, because part of the logistical problem of supply is going to impact the mechs we have access to, and when we have access to them, and how many we have access to. So if you unlock a mech chassis, for example, you're not guaranteed to be able to buy a second one after unlocking it. This is kind of how it goes. As we can see with merchant cast procurements for Ghost Bear, because Ghost Bear's logistics is not very strong and wasn't handled very well, so they're trying to right that, but we have to deal with that. So it makes for an interesting way in which they're handling the new mechs and having an elite star and having the 12 missions and everything else is kind of just thematically being worked into the whole logistical issue, and it works. It definitely works, but that also means you're not going to be able to just go and buy a bajillion Novas or anything like that. You gotta kind of prioritize what you're getting. So there are choices to be made a bit more importantly here. As you can see in a star, we have a lot of different skills that they can use now, and for Jonathan, I like giving him Fast Learner, because he'll be able to then get the rest of his evasion pretty quickly after that. But anyways, that's pretty much it. We also have a lot of completed research, so you do start you off pretty elite, honestly, which makes sense because you're the Silver Root Keshik. In any case, thanks so much for tuning in, and until next time, take care.